This weekend, Donovan Mitchell posted pictures of him working out in Cavs gear, and the first time Cleveland fans, they now have had the chance to see their newly acquired star in maroon and gold. Wine and gold, maroon and gold. Either way. Earlier today, though, alternate governor and CEO of the Jazz basketball, Danny Ainge, he spoke at a press conference this morning, and he had some very revealing comments on why the Jazz broke up their all-star combo. Take a listen.
What I saw during the season was a group of players that really didn't believe in each other. Like the whole group, I think they liked each other even more than was reported. I think there was, but I'm not sure there was a belief that they, and so when we got to the playoffs, I thought, well, this is a team that's had some disappointing playoffs, and maybe they're just waiting for the playoffs. And so I gave them that benefit of the doubt. And, but it was clear the team, did not perform well in the playoffs again. This was something that we discussed internally between all of us, and I think it was unanimous that this was the direction we needed to go.
I mean, Ainge not holding back there at all. It seems like he was saying sort of the quiet part out loud. Brian, what's your just initial reaction to hearing Ainge just be so blunt in explaining his thought process?
Well, consider that he was speaking in public. So he probably toned it down, Malika, 50, 70% of the way he really feels. So turn that up and imagine what he thought about this team. And I have to say that it really wasn't a surprise if you follow the Jazz last year. At one point, Quinn Snyder, the now departed coach, tried to cover up the chemistry problems on the roster by saying, sometimes Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell eat lunch together. I mean, with all due respect, it was kind of laughable then. So I will say this, though. The Jazz paid $19 million in luxury tax for this team last year. They finished with the number 5 seed. This was a team that was expensive and just not very good. And what Danny Ainge said there, he didn't think that they were going to get any better. So they looked at the rest of the league, a strengthening East, a West that was going to get healthier, and they made the evaluation that this team wasn't good enough. And however you want to describe it, their actions reflected that, and Danny Ainge backed that up today. And I can understand it. I can understand why they went this route, because they clearly didn't believe in the roster that they had.
Well, I always think it's interesting with press conferences, who is the desired audience? Who is the intended audience? And the audience for this is clearly the fans of the Utah Jazz that have seen this team knock on the door, but never quite break through it in the playoffs the last few years. The other audience, though, who is definitely listening and will have his own say fairly soon, is Donovan Mitchell. His press conference later on this week in Cleveland, so that'll be interesting as well. But the Jazz now, they're doing a full reset. But, in conversations I've had with both around the league and teams that have talked to the Jazz, it feels like they have a lot more business to do. The question is, when do they do that business? They still have Bojan Bogdanovic, Jordan Clarkson, Mike Conley. The sense around the league is that the Jazz at least feel they have deals for all of those veteran players, if and when they want them, where they would return a first-round pick for each of these kind of players. But they don't, my sense in talking to people close to these conversations is the Jazz are not in any hurry to make these decisions now. They don't need to do that much financially to get under the tax, and they can take their time. And I was actually reassured by somebody close to the situation the other day that if this group gets out there and plays well, if they start off well, they'll let them play. Like, there is a sense of there's a reset going on, and they have players and veterans that have value to teams that are trying to contend this year. But if this group that they have right now, with their new coach Will Hardy and the young players they got that they're very high on, if they start out well, they're going to let them play a while. They're not in any hurry.
Interesting. All right. So you mentioned Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, Bojan Bogdanovic. Brian, what are you hearing about how the Jazz may approach those veteran players?
If they start out well this year, it's an absolute disaster. They do not want to win many games. They want to be as high in this lottery as possible. When they were trading Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, they were also trading for their own pick this year to be as good as possible. Now, I agree with Ramona. I don't think they're out there looking to win 7 games. And I think that, they have time to do deals during the season. I think they're trying to send the vibe out there that they're not in a rush to trade these guys. But I absolutely believe that they will make another deal before opening night. I'm going to give you 2 reasons. One, they're too close to the luxury tax. 2, they've got 17 guaranteed contracts. You can only have 15. They're clearing guys out. I think they could trade Bojan Bogdanovic by 5 o'clock today if they wanted to. I think they're waiting for teams maybe to sweeten their offers a little bit. The harder player going to be traded is Mike Conley. Yeah. Conley has $15 million guaranteed on his contract for next year. Teams don't want that, especially if they're giving the Jazz a first-round pick. So that could be a harder player to trade. And I agree with Ramona. I don't think that they're motivated maybe to trade Conley. I don't think they would mind having him around. But there are other players, especially Bogdanovich, Jordan Clarkson, and Malik Beasley. I would be very surprised if those guys are Utah Jazz by the trade deadline.
Interesting. Almost guaranteeing that we are going to see another move come out of Utah before the season starts. And boy, the season is a-coming. And Ramona mentioned it, Donovan Mitchell, his opening press conference will be this week. We will be covering that here on NBA Today.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.